Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of Over It. I am Tara Stepmayer. We've got Julie Roginski, JoJo from Jers, my girl, Michelle Kinney. We are here with you guys midweek after 4th of July, and there's still a lot going on, as always. There's never a break. Donald Trump is still up to his bullshit, and we're over it, and we're going to talk about it all today.
You are muted, Tara Setmayer.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Oh, and there we go.
There we go. You're muted again, Tara Setmayer.
I don't know what happened.
My computer did this to me the other day. It's like technology, friends. You know?
It's a weird equipment malfunction right now. My mic just decided to go because it's Wednesday, I guess. I don't know. I apologize for that. Anyway, I'm over this thing. Yes, it's been a rough couple of days. There's just been a lot of tragedy happening. We're watching in horror what happened in Texas. And we just got an update before we came on air. There was another press conference. It's up to 119 now. Folks lost, and many of them young children. Michelle and I are not moms, but Julie and JoJo are. And it's hard, even as not being moms, we can all collectively grieve this incredible loss for this community in Texas. And I just think it's opening up various conversations, and we've been having them over the last couple of days. Joe joined me yesterday on Don Lemon's show. I was guest hosting for Don because he's on vacation, and we were talking about the humanity and the importance of never losing that humanity in this country. And we see what MAGA and Trump and just the ilk that comes from them all the time that is chipping away at our humanity. But when you have tragedies like this and you see the way the community has come together there, and you see some of the hero stories and just the way in which humanity and compassion is still alive, I think it's important for us to be reminded of what matters and what makes us America, and to never let MAGA and their depravity take that from us.
You know, I just want to say something as a mom, and Joe, I think you'll agree with me. But again, as you've pointed out, Tara, you don't need to be a mom to understand this, because we are all human beings.
Yep.
You know, I turned to my husband when this was all happening, and I said, can you imagine if this were last summer when my son was in camp, and you send, I don't care who you are, you send your kids to camp, even if it's a day camp. Mine was a sleepaway last year, as these kids were. But you send them with trepidation. And even when my son was going to day camp, and he would get on that little school bus to take him to just a few miles outside the city when he was little, I would always get really nervous, because he wasn't in school where there's a routine, but he was in camp, which was a little bit unfamiliar, and I didn't have any control over it because he was away. Even though he was a few miles away, I could have jumped in my car. It doesn't matter. And just the thought of these little girls being away from their parents, some of them homesick, some of them excited, writing letters to their parents, some of which will arrive after they're dead. Letters about what they did in camp, letters about them missing their mom and dad. Those are the last words that these parents are ever going to hear from their kids. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it like that, and you just think as a mother about letting go and entrusting your kids to somebody else, and having that suddenly turn out the way I don't know. I just have been, every time I think about it, I'm almost in tears. Because of course you can't help but project onto your own kids. And I'm sure you probably had that same mentality when you maybe you didn't, but I think a lot of people do, of just, and then you almost fear projecting it to your kids because you're afraid of kind of putting the caloric on your kids or jinxing your kids that way. And so you kind of don't even want to think about it with respect to your own kids. But of course you can't stop your brain from doing that. And it's just terrifying and heartbreaking. And the fact that there are people out there in this world that don't think about other people's kids this way, whether they're lost in a tragedy like in Texas and they're American kids, whether there are kids who are separated from their parents, who are being deported or locked up in cages in places called Alligator Alcatraz, whether they're kids that I see in the New York City subway, Michelle, I'm sure you do too, selling fruit
Oh yeah, all the time.
in 100-degree heat in Times Square in the subway, not going to school, but glued to their mother's hip as they're walking through car after car after car selling food to stay alive. It's just one of those situations, but I'm not religious, but you kind of just think, there, but for the grace of God go I. It could be any one of us. At
Absolutely.
any time. And it's just, I can't get that out of my head. And I can't get out of my head how there are people in this country that don't have that kind of empathy for other people's children, because it could be you. It could be you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Joe, I think, yesterday you did actually, Joe was emotional. She had tears coming down her face during our conversation because, she has a daughter. And we were talking about how I know for me, I went to Girl Scout camp in upstate New York. It was called Glen Spey, and it was in Port Jervis. For those people
I know
who
Port
know,
Jervis.
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I couldn't wait to go to Girl Scout camp. It was sleepaway camp. I went for 2 weeks. It was awesome. And we used to pick blueberries and thought that we were going to make blueberry jam with our flashlights. We were going to cook the blueberries. We put them in our little thing in our cabins. I loved Girl Scout camp. And my mom used to bawl. I can remember we would all muster. Our buses would be at the Bergen Mall. For those who know Jersey and Paramus.
Bergen Mall. Is it still there?
Yeah, but it's called Bergen Town Center now.
That's right. They've got some
yeah, they just did a reopening, actually.
Yeah.
Another reopening. They've tried to revitalize it a few times. And I just saw on Paramus Police Department's page that they did another grand reopening, and the situation was there. I'm like, guys, seriously? From Jersey Shore? Anyway, that's an aside.
15 minutes now.
I know. But anyway, I can remember having my little Walkman, and I remember listening to Thompson Twins and my mom waving to my mom, and my mom would keep it together. And then she would tell me later on, she told me years later, she goes, do you understand? I would bawl when you would leave. Yeah. I was like, are you serious? She goes, yes. She goes, first of all, it was my mom and I, she was a single parent, when I was 9, my mom was 29. and we were always together, and 2 weeks without me, she was like, oh. But also, you're giving your kid up. Like you said, Julie, you don't have control. Your kid is going to camp for 2 weeks and they're in the custody of someone else. And for the worst, most unimaginable thing to happen, it's every parent's nightmare. And we can all relate to that. Even, I don't know if you guys went to camp too, but I mean, I went to Girl Scout camp and 4-H camp and sleepaway camp and loved it. And of course I was okay, but I just can't imagine that for those parents in that community. It's just, it's too much.
I hate a
When
camp.
it comes to our children, this is different. Yes, being a mom gives me a certain perspective, but on a human level, as just human beings, whether or not you have children, you were once a child yourself, but also you understand, most people do, that they are vulnerable and that they need us to do fundamentally one thing, right? Which is to protect them and keep them safe. And I am probably going to cry as a mom. I keep thinking about those little girls not having anyone, and as they were crying out, no adult to save them, to come and rescue them. That in those last moments of their lives, they were terrified and no one could help them, and no one did, because those floodwaters at that time, nobody could rescue them. It's a catastrophe. And I think about those parents waking up every day in the wake of what happened and looking at those empty beds and those empty chairs and those empty pairs of shoes and sets of clothing. And that is their new forever. And it's unfathomable. But also, as Tara and I talked about yesterday, and as I keep thinking to myself, hopefully, on some level, this is going to remind us of who we are and who we can be to each other. And we have seen incredible acts of selflessness and bravery and empathy and compassion across the political spectrum. No one's stopping to ask who they voted for No one waited to take a child out of a tree until they told them, what flags they flew or, what president they wanted. None of that happened or should happen. And while I said to Tara yesterday that I am constantly and perpetually surprised by our capacity for cruelty in this country, I'm also an optimist and maybe a little naive in that I maintain that we are largely better than that, and that there are more of us that do see these stories and are moved. And yeah, I think we still need to manage to thread the needle of accountability while remembering our hearts and remembering what is larger than politics and policy at this moment, and that is the human stories, the children that will never come back, the parents that have lost everything. They've lost their only child. They've lost 2 of their 3 daughters, 2 of their only daughters. But yeah, we also have to remember that there is accountability too. But the human stories here, if we can't take a beat right now and unite as a people behind a moment of immense tragedy, then all is lost. And I don't believe that all is actually lost right now.
Yeah. Michelle, did you want to say something?
A couple of things. My over it, a few weeks ago was about the cruelty of people and how casual it has become. And it is something that is happening on both sides. I saw a lot of progressives and a lot of so-called democracy defenders in the hours after this happened, experiencing some kind of schadenfreude that people in Texas were suffering for voting for things that don't protect them or voting against their interests.
Why don't you just call it Michelle? Because I know who you're.
Yeah, you know what? It's Ron Filipowski at Midas Touch, and Midas Touch, kind of followed up with it. And then the next day, when after all the backlash, they, Ron wrote. By the way, if you don't know who Ron Filipowski is, he's the editor-in-chief of Midas Touch. And they doubled down and said, we will not apologize. But
explain what it is that he posted and why it pissed.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't have it in front of me.
He was saying about the cuts to NOAA and the Weather Service contributed to this. This was very early on. Contributed to the tragedy, but then didn't say anything about ways to help.
No ways to help.
But sorry. It's because it took place in Texas, and Texas voted for Trump, and therefore they had it coming.
Right.
These little girls.
Well, right. That's the underlying current here, is that these stupid people, and I'm putting my fingers in quotes here, these stupid people, and he didn't say this, but alluded to the fact that they got what they deserved because they vote for all of this terrible stuff. And also didn't really offer any condolences, didn't really say anything about the children, didn't say anything about the camp, did not offer any resources to how to help, nothing. It became about gotchas and clicks and righteousness.
And this is hours into it. It wasn't days later. It's not this is in the middle of the tragedy still unfolding. Right. They were pulling little.
Yeah, and on accounts that are monetized and all, whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that just makes me really, really sick. And the other part of this here is when the people in Minnesota, the Democrats, were assassinated, we had the president of the United States on Air Force One tell a gaggle of reporters that he wasn't going to call Tim Walz, who's the governor, because he thought it would be, quote, a waste of time. The first thing that the Republicans could do was label him a Democrat, even though he wasn't. And actually, this was targeted, political, well-planned out assassinations. And I go back to Nancy Pelosi, when that crazy man jumped the wall of her home and her property and took a hammer to the head of her husband. And the first thing that the oldest son of the former president of the United States could do was make jokes about the fact that it was his gay lover or some bullshit. And and it's just and I hate both siding, but this really is becoming a problem because we are better than this. And I am very pessimistic about people. because I think a lot of people are horrible, just largely. It's just how I feel. But
Hey, Emily, can you put that back up?
Yeah, leave that
I think we should. I think we should read it.
yeah, at
The
Ron
right.
at Ron Filipowski, the people of Texas voted for government services controlled by Donald Trump and Greg Abbott. This is exactly what they're getting. This was at 10:30 a.m. July 5th, 2025.
Yeah.
And
And people were upset about it, and we have a right
rightfully
to,
so.
we can be critical of people who are supposed to be on the same side. We will never become what we despise. We're not hypocrites, and we're going to call it out if we think it's inappropriate, and we weren't the only ones.
No,
And they doubled down on it, unfortunately, and I think that was a mistake by them.
it was a huge
And I
mistake.
think to your point, Michelle, I think one of the things that happens here is that this keeps moving us further down the line of dehumanization, right? Further down the line of forgetting the human stories that we were all just talking about, right? Like, and it's insidious no matter who does it. It doesn't help bring us together in any way, shape, or form. And again, it trivializes loss, which coming through a pandemic, and Michelle, I know you talk about this a lot in the wake of, the plague, what was it? Before, in the lead up to Nazi Germany.
Oh yeah, in the decades that led up to the rise of the Nazis in Germany. I mean, the places that got the most amount of Nazi support and the most amount of Nazi votes were the places that suffered the most amount of death during the 1918 pandemic. And
Right.
And very similarly, here in the United States, not only did we have a leader who refused to even acknowledge its existence and did not want to help people, we had a nation that very divided in our individualistic approach as to how we were going to combat a novel coronavirus. And we had 1 million people die, and a lot of people just seem okay with that.
Yeah, and I mean to add to that, what I mean to add to that is that the forces that are pushing us and pulling us apart and pushing us in that direction where we're like, and Ron's a friend of mine, I'm not gonna lie, Ron is a friend of mine, and I can say that I'm not, I don't think that was right that he said that. We can criticize our friends, we should do that, right? But the forces that are already at play in this tinderbox of a country right now very much want us to do that, right? To say that's what you get, fuck around and find out,
Right.
no matter what the cost. And we have to try to endeavor to be better than that. That's what, for me, this moment reminds me of. Like, that's what you're right about what Ron posted, because I don't think that is actually in his heart, even though I know he doubled down and Midas doubled down, and I will call them out for that as well. He's a dad, like, and I think maybe there's a little bit of pride there where it's like, don't make me retract my words. I'm not going to defend it or even explain it for Ron or for Midas. I will just say that it is, to everyone's point, indicative of a larger societal rot right now, that we have the power. Actually, I do firmly believe, and yeah, this is me again being naive, probably, sure, that I think we have the power to push back against and like these moments. Hopefully, maybe that is me being foolish, but hopefully this is one of those light bulbs for a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe that is me being extremely optimistic. You guys, I mean, sometimes I am that way. I would hope so.
But we saw the governor of Texas, responding to reporters when he was asked about, like, where do you think there should be blame placed, or is anyone responsible, basically. And he said something like, who asked those questions, or is it losers? Oh, who does that sound like?
He's a fucking monster, by the way.
Right. This guy's a monster.
Is a monster and has been for a very long time. Women are dying in Texas right now is because of Greg Abbott. I just want to be very clear.
He wanted more razor wire in the Rio Grande to catch more immigrant children. He doesn't give a fuck. He's the ladder puller of the century, by the way.
Yes.
And truly horrible abomination of a human being.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Donald, let's not forget that Donald Trump also, the day before, on 4th of July, talked about how much he hated Democrats because they disagree with him. I hate them, is what he said, basically implying anyone who doesn't agree with him.
It's worse, Tara.
Because they hate our country.
And they hate our country.
Correct.
What does that tell you to do if you're a patriot and somebody hates your country? On the 4th of July, what did patriots do on the 4th of July in 1775 for the signing of the Declaration of Independence? because they wanted their own country and to take it back from those who they felt hated it. They took up arms. They took up arms, and not just against the British. They took up arms against fellow colonists who were sympathizing with the British, of which there were many more than the revolutionaries, right?
Yeah.
And it became very bloody, not just against the British, but against their fellow, Bostonians, their fellow New Yorkers, their fellow Virginians, whoever it was, because again, there were many more people in this country who wanted to stay with Great Britain. So I say that to say that he is not an educated man. He is not an intellectual man, but he's viscerally shrewd like a fox. He knows how to push those buttons. He knows how to light that tinderbox, and then, I didn't say to kill anybody, but the message has been received. Back and stand by January 6th.
That's right. It's going to be wild.
He knows exactly how to speak to the people who know how to receive that message.
I mean, and
call to arms.
And those people keep proving themselves to be horrible. I mean, I'm like just horrible people. They keep getting rearrested and doing dumb stuff, evil stuff. Another guy was just arrested the other day. I don't know if you guys saw that for plotting to assassinate the law enforcement that investigated his case.
No, he was sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah, but he was pardoned, right? Was he pardoned?
No, he has now been sentenced to life in prison since his pardon. So he was he thought that these threats against the law enforcement would be covered by his pardon, and sadly, they were not.
They may be. You never know what Trump's going to wake up like tomorrow. But
that's right.
But it kind of brings me to my overreach.
Support the police.
Yeah, I don't want to step on yours, Tara.
Oh no, it's fine. Just before you go to your over it though, Julie, I do want to say two things about some positive things with Texas, just because I don't want to leave it on that. If you guys have not seen, and I forgot to ask Em to cut this clip, but there was an extraordinary interview with a 26-year-old Coast Guardsman who saved 165 of those little girls at Camp Mystic by himself. He was his unit was sent in the middle of all of this. And he said, just leave me here, go to some other, other areas and see if you can rescue folks. I will handle this here. And he was able to be with some of those scared little girls by himself, 26 years old, only been in the Coast Guard. He's a rescue swimmer, only been in the Coast Guard for like 2 years. He was an accountant before that. And 165 of them and their counselors to safety. That is extraordinary heroism in a time that I think we need to reflect more on those folks that do that. And as well as some of the Mexican rescuers who came over, despite everything Donald Trump has said and done and the horrible things about Mexico and the Mexican people. They were like, fuck that. We don't care. We're here for humanity, and we're going to help save these folks as best as we can too, because you're our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Despite what Donald Trump is trying to do and demonize people from Mexico. So I think it was, I thought it was important that we recognize some of those acts of heroism in spite of the depravity by MAGA.
Well, and I think a lot of people, I mean, I think of the Mexican people, right? And on the receiving end of the cruelest president in modern history, at least. And how they continue to love the people of this country, even though we often do not love them back. And it's very, very sad. And it's very infuriating, because I hope that if there are any people from Mexico or Canada watching this, please understand that we are not our representation. There are millions of us who love you and respect you and see you as our neighbors, and would hope that our country would do the same for you. And I'm sorry that right now it isn't.
Yep. Amen to that. And by the way, Scott Ruskin is from Jersey.
Yay.
Coast Guardsman. Yay, Jersey.
Awesome.
All right.
Jersey represent.
Yes.
All right. So
go ahead, Julie.
It kind of, the reason I'm going to my overt now is because it kind of dovetails with what we've been talking about, although Tara, I think yours does as well. I'm not going to talk about what happened in Los Angeles, Tara, because that's, I think, something you're going to talk about. But I want to talk.
I'll go after you.
Yeah, but I want to talk about how much more broadly we are normalizing fascism, and how we're normalizing this kind of behavior, and how we're normalizing this kind of cruelty until it becomes standard. And as somebody who's a student of history and somebody who has come from a country that was authoritarian, to say the least, and has now turned into a full-on fascist country under Vladimir Putin. I will say to you that what we're starting to see now is a normalization of the cruelty and a normalization of the hate your brother mentality that is the hallmark of every authoritarian fascist country that has come before us. And it's no longer that it's coming. I just want to say that it's here. And I want to say that it's here for two reasons. One is what happened in Los Angeles, which Tara will talk about in a moment. But the other, which has not been covered very much, and it's impossible to get a transcript because the White House will not release it.
Shocker.
And because the Claremont Institute will not release it, although they did release the video of it, which is why I was able to watch the whole thing. But J.D. Vance on the 5th of July, last Saturday, spoke at the Claremont Institute in San Diego's annual dinner. The Claremont Institute is one of the brain children behind Project 2025. It's a very right-wing organization. It used to be a right-wing in the sense that Reagan used to speak there. And Thatcher.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Right. Tara used to be kind of
I used to go to their dinners. Yeah. Yes.
But now it's become full-on MAGA nutbag.
Right. Like Heritage. Heritage wasn't
right.
wackos before. It was actually like an intellectual think tank that was like, conservatism. And now it's off the rails and has been for a while.
Actually. So this is the California West Coast version of it.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to post a Substack on this tomorrow. I'm writing it now, but I want people, if they can, to watch the whole video, nauseating though it is. Because what J.D. Vance effectively said at this dinner, and I'm going to read some quotes, but I think more relevantly, the quotes don't encapsulate the gist of what he was saying, which I'll get to in a moment. He basically said, I'm going to read a quote, identifying America with just agreeing with the principles, let's say, of the Declaration of Independence, that's a definition that is way over-inclusive and under-inclusive at the same time. Then he goes on to say, that would include hundreds of millions, maybe billions of foreign citizens who agree with those principles. And he said that basically would make America a purely creedal nation. Mm-hmm. Right? And he said that way, you think of American citizenship as based purely on an idea. What that would do then, if you believe in the Declaration of Independence, according to Vance, is that, and the whole creedal idea of the United States, which I thought is what all of these fundamentalists based, including the Supreme Court, based everything on, right? The originalists, the people who want to the language of the Constitution.
Right. Alito.
This is what the conservative party, the Republican Party, and the conservative members of that party used to believe in. Mm-hmm. Now, he said that that's not what it should be based on. And then he goes after the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which started off as an organization to combat anti-Semitism and now combats all right-wing kind of craziness.
Yeah.
He said that would reject a lot of people that the ADL would label as domestic extremists, even though those very Americans had their ancestors fight in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. I think the people whose ancestors fought in the Civil War have a hell of a lot more claim over America than the people who say they don't belong. So I just want to be very clear. If you believe in the Declaration of Independence and the creed of the United States is embodied by the Declaration of Independence and is embodied by the Constitution of the United States, you're not really American, because a lot of people believe in our values, even though they're not American. The people who are really American, even though they may be domestic terrorists, are people whose bloodlines, and I want to use that phrase very carefully, goes back to fighting in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. He did not specify which side of the Civil War.
Of course not.
So what that basically means is that if you are
anyone other than Michelle, because Michelle's the only one here whose family bloodline actually goes back to fighting in the Revolutionary War. The rest of us are not real Americans.
The Civil War. And it's like I'm so far removed from it that I'm like,
but think about,
you know what I mean?
But think about what he says, right? What he's basically saying is that if you believe in any of this, it doesn't matter what you believe. You could be a January 6er. You could be you could be a Ku Klux Klan member. You could be a neo-Nazi. You could be anybody who rejects the basic tenet of this nation, which is that all men and now women regardless of color. Took us 250 years to get there, but now allegedly all men and women, regardless of color, creed, whatever, religion, we're all created equal. That is no longer what this country is based on, according to the man who is one Big Mac away from the presidency. What this country is based on is your bloodline.
Yeah. We've heard that before.
Your connection to people who have been here a long time. That does not include Donald Trump, by the way. His mother came from abroad. His father came from abroad. And it does not include any of his children, whose mothers, except for possibly
Marla.
Tiffany. Yeah, I don't know where Marla's family, when they got here, probably a long time ago. But except for Tiffany, all of his children really are not American then. The people who are American are people whose families fought. As long as you've been here for, I guess, 150 years or longer, regardless of who you are, you're an American.
Bye, Marco Rubio.
Heidi, yeah. Oh, Heidi,
what about JD Vance's own wife, to Heidi's point?
Yeah, to Heidi's point. What about his wife?
And his kids.
Right. What about, you're absolutely right. What about all of the Trump kids except for Tiffany?
The one he doesn't even claim.
What about, what about, she hasn't gotten the cert. Well, I'll stop.
She's richer than all of them now.
Right. She married a legit billionaire.
Yeah. What about Trump himself?
Yeah.
And what does that say to you? What does that sound like? On, one nation, one blood, one Reich.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing that's so frustrating about this, Julie. And I'm glad that you brought this up because it got lost in the coverage of the floods and everything else that's going on. What happened with JD out there in San Diego, by the way, he was protested. There were people out in the streets that were protesting him and screaming at his motorcade as it was driving by and telling them to get the fuck out of California. We don't want you here.
Just really quick, is this where he went swimming in the hotel pool with his shirt on?
That was last year.
Oh, why did that make the? Sorry, it came up on my feed today.
I
so
remember
I was like,
that
I wonder
happened
if
last year. That came close to the couch fucking stuff. Like I remember just dragging.
Anyways, but
I mean,
they were related.
That's why.
Yeah, no, I'm sure any opportunity to drag JD Vance, people take it, and because he's just terrible. But that did happen. People in San Diego were basically telling him to get the fuck out of our city. We don't want you here. And there were videos of that going on. And I saw that. I did not see the speech in all of this. So I'm glad that Julie brought it up and has brought that to the attention of the almost 9,000 people who are watching this right now. And because people need to know this. And that's why we do programs like this. That's why influencers and independent media folks that have platforms take those clips and post them so people are informed. We know, I'm thinking about this now, Michelle, about what, we should do something on Seneca with this, a quick with his quote next to what was said during Hitler and go, explain it like, hello, people, you got a problem with this?
Take it further with Donald Trump. What was he talking about on the campaign trail last year? Vermin?
Yes.
Poisoning the blood of our country. I mean, the list goes on. He was using very specific
Nazi language,
and like not just throwaway. I'm saying Nazi as a catch-all, like legitimately, specifically Nazi Germany language.
I mean, they had the Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. They did it at Madison Square Garden on purpose.
Yes, and Ivana said that he kept one book by his bedside, and it was Hitler's speeches.
Yep.
That's like, I'm not saying he's a studied man that is prone to reading, but if he's going to read anything, that's going to be it. I mean, I'm not giving him credit for being a genius in any way, shape, or form, but he sure knows how to stoke hate.
He said he wants Hitler's generals. Remember? He wanted Hitler's generals, even though, again, not a student of history because they tried to kill him. But I mean, again, and also this dovetails into something else that we discovered yesterday is that Grok, which is the AI bot thing that Elon Musk has created for Twitter, is praising Hitler. And if you ask it questions and it's talking about Ashkenazi Jew names and what do you expect? Every damn time someone says this, and then it was like praising Hitler as being someone who would take care of this. Like, it's insane what's happening right now as we speak on Grok.
Yeah. Well, right. That and first of all, Elon Musk and X, they denied that this happened, and then they deleted it. But like, if anybody doesn't know or isn't on
proof.
Twitter, is Grok, which is like the AI sort of chat GPT part of Twitter. If you ask it questions, I mean, it was bringing up people's surnames who were Jewish and making a big deal out of that. And basically saying, yeah, I'm a Nazi. I'm this. I mean, like, the whole thing was insane.
It was insane. It was insane.
But again, this is the guy who threw up a Nazi salute the day of the inauguration of the United States of America on the same stage. Like, are you kidding me? Like, again, like, these people have shown us who they are, what they believe in, the people that they want to surround themselves since day one.
And that's what I want. That's what I want to say, Michelle. That's actually, you know, I'm kind of being calm here because, you know, whatever. I'm not a screamer unless it's my child who, casual observer. You're right. He was sneaking his way down the stairs.
I know. I saw him go and I was laughing.
I tell him to Starbucks. Go to Starbucks and get me some coffee. But
listen, if we can tolerate cat butt all the time from Rafi when we're on the air, it's fine to get an Alex excited.
I don't mind. He was being very sneaky. I think he was being sneaky. I was like, I sent him to Starbucks and get him out of here. But he, but what I'm being calm about, although we should not be calm about this at all, is what I want to say. And I know that it sounds hyperbolic and people are like, come on, this is the United States. My husband tells me I'm overreacting all the time because he is a privileged white man who grew up in New Jersey and has been told all his life, if you work hard, things will work out for you. And he worked hard and things have worked out for him. So he can't possibly envision something happening that is not fair. But I want people to understand what is actually happening. And that is that we are no longer approaching fascism. We are living in it when the second most powerful man on earth, J.D. Vance, is able to tell people point blank that what matters is not your belief in the fact that we are a nation of laws, not of men, which is what this country has been based on for 249 years, with some exceptions, but never like this, that we are now a nation of bloodlines, and that you are truly American only if your bloodline goes back a certain number of years, which means that neither Tara, nor I, nor Jojo, nor I bet many of you on this chat are real Americans, no matter what you believe. And by the way, my MAGA friends who are on this chat, unless you have family that fought in the Civil War or the Revolutionary War, neither are you.
Yeah.
And I will say to you what history has shown over and over and over again, which is that they will not stop with us.
Oh, no.
They will eventually come for you. Every fucking time. I'm sorry, Dad, but if you are watching, you will agree with me. Every time that knock on the door at 3 a.m. comes and you ask, why me? What did I do? And the answer is, because you're on a list.
Yep. Which I think is a good segue into my over it, because if anyone has been paying attention to what's still happening in Los Angeles, and it is all part of this. It is all part of this laying the foundation to desensitize the American people to the fascism and authoritarianism that Donald Trump and his regime are foisting on us every single day under the guise of patriotism, law and order, cleaning up the rapists and the criminals, getting them out of here. And it's all because, there's an invasion in our country. Democrats hate our country and I hate them back. So I have to do this to protect the real Americans. All of this is laying the predicate for Donald Trump to continue to take away our rights, shred the Constitution, emasculate Congress, which they're letting him do, as Joe always talks about, cutting their balls off in Congress, which is true. All of this. Senator Boxer who's on our Seneca advisory board. She was on MSNBC today saying how horrified she was by the way that how passive Congress has been and just letting Trump do all of this. She was talking about the tariffs and how he really doesn't have the authority to do what he's doing with tariffs, which is true. It's supposed to be in Congress, but they're just letting him do it. She's like, I don't know why. And, and here we have what's happening now in LA because he's escalated.
Can we throw that picture up?
Yeah. Yes. So this is what's happening. This happened on Monday in MacArthur Park in LA, which is a predominantly immigrant community there. Yes, it has its crime problems, and that's fine, but that is a city issue. We don't need the federal government in militarized garb and federal troops and ICE and all of that emerging during the day at MacArthur Park, where kids were getting ready to go to camp. Speaking of camp, little kids were running to their camp counselors and hiding because they were scared to death. Like, what the hell is going on here? They did this sweep, and there's video of this too, if you have not seen it. That is blood curdling. This should not be happening in an American park in the summer. I don't care what's going on. This is not okay. And they did this as a show of force just to intimidate, because they called it an immigration operation. It was an ICE operation. So you had ICE and CBP, and I think they had some troops with them. I'm unclear. But most of those people you see in
90,000 National Guard troops.
Right.
Military tactical gear.
For what? Full military tactical gear in a park in a United States city, the second largest city in the country. And you know what they did? Nothing. They didn't arrest anyone. There wasn't a sweep. They alleged that it was supposed to be to arrest MS-13 gang members or gang members or whatever. That didn't happen. You know what did happen though? There was a fucking film crew with them. This was a damn propaganda video shoot.
Yep. Jesus Christ.
That's
I didn't
what
know
this
that.
was. Yes.
Yep.
And it was, and you can see in the video, you can see the camera crew, because there's like a drone shot of this. You see the camera crews running, taking the filming it in action. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Let's watch for that video to drop, because it's going to drop, and they're going to. They did the ASMR for the flights to Venezuela. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. That whole thing. This is all about propaganda and these flashy videos, and and injecting this into the zeitgeist to normalize this and show strength and blah, blah, blah. And what? This is America. What are we doing? Right. Why are we accepting this? The American
leave
people.
That shit to Hollywood for the fake made up pretend stuff. We don't right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they all look like stormtroopers.
People were saying this in LA. They were like, we thought there was a movie shoot going on. Right. That's what it looked like. It was so
looks like stormtroopers on horseback. I mean, it's ridiculous.
They were like Lord of the Rings, like Timu, Lord of the Rings.
Right. Like, what are they doing? And I think we have the headline in LA where it says that there was it was a film for TikTok. The mayor, Karen Bass, came out and said, enough. Yes, staging for a TikTok video. Karen Bass, council members decry federal raid in LA's MacArthur Park. Now, we don't know if it was for TikTok or not, but we know there were film crews there, and we'll probably see it on social media first, because that's what Trump likes to do, because every single day of his presidency is another production for the reality show, the Real Housewives of Fascism at Mar-a-Lago. Like, that's what we are living through every single day. And meanwhile, our constitutional rights are being trampled, and our elected officials are still giving strongly worded speeches on the floor. That's great.
But it goes back to what Julie said. You said this, Tara, and I think Julie mentioned something to this effect, but it's also get used to this. They want us.
I have the video. I'm sorry, Joe. We have that video.
There's a guy running alongside, by the way, in this video.
Not that video. I think it's the video of the CBP commander who was on site that day, basically telling the American people, too fucking bad in LA. We're going to be here anyway. We've got that video.
The federal government is not leaving LA. I don't work for Karen Bass. The federal government doesn't work for Karen Bass. We're going to be here till that mission's accomplished, as I said, and better get used to us now, because this is going to be normal very soon.
because this is going to be normal very soon. No, it shouldn't be normal that the federal government in militarized garb and federal troops on a LA street in an LA park occupying our city against the will of the government
Good son.
government.
That's
Oh,
a
you
good
better
son.
get used to it, motherfucker. You work for us. Our tax dollars pay for your uniform, for your truck that you're standing in front of, for the badge and the oath that you swore. That is because of we the people and the Constitution, not because of Donald Trump. This is bullshit.
Well, what did Trump and Congress just tell that guy?
Right.
They just said, we value you and what you do so much that we're now going to build what your what's the word I'm looking for? Help law enforcement agency, your agency 20-fold. We're going to make it the largest law enforcement agency in our country. We're going to infuse it with so much cash, and we're going to have so many more of you. This is what we value. This is our priority. And what's he thinking? Yeah, that's right. I don't work for you American people. I'm the big guns here. I can do whatever I want. I'm not accountable to any of you. The United States government from up on high just told me how valuable I am, and I'm about to come into your cities 20-fold. And Tom Mushmouth Holman was on there, I think, talking about Seattle too.
Yes, and they're trying to come for New York and Washington. Did you hear this?
We have the video. I just sent it.
Oh, we do?
So we play before we play it though. Hold on. I just want people to watch the guy with the camera running alongside law enforcement filming the whole thing, so you understand exactly what happened. This is from Karen Bass's office. She sped it up so you don't have to, it's very quick, but go ahead and play it.
Do they circle the camera guy?
Watch the camera guy.
Oh, there he is. Right there on the bottom.
Oh my God.
On the bottom.
Yep. There he comes.
Yep.
I mean,
look at
we
that.
went from storming the beaches at Normandy to storming the pickleball court.
Yeah, in MacArthur Park.
In MacArthur Park.
For a video, for a propaganda video shoot.
I'd be interested to know who they hired.
I know. Right.
It's probably some internal guy working for ICE or working. They probably have some.
Yeah, they have a public affairs. They have a public affairs office.
Well, which I have a whole opinion about as well.
But I want to just say one thing, because somebody in the chat mentioned this, and this is actually something I meant to talk about. Thank you for reminding me. Trump gave a very meandering, crazy answer yesterday about the possibility of Zohran Mamdani getting elected as mayor of New York, and they asked him whether he would just take over New York if that were the case. He went on a weird, Jake Tapper worthy of investigation, insane diatribe about how they have a good relationship with Washington and they could take over Washington, but they're not going to because they've got a good relationship with the mayor there. And then Susie Wiles works very well with the mayor, and completely a weird rabbit hole that, frankly, if somebody were concerned about his mental health, I'm talking to you, Jake Tapper, you might want to investigate. However, what he did effectively imply, or at least what I think normal people would infer from that conversation, although he could deny it, is that yes, indeed, Zohran Mamdani is a communist. We're not going to allow communists in the largest city in the world, which Donald Trump helped build and he loves, and yada, yada. And therefore, yes, the federal government may effectively take over New York City.
Yeah.
Again, you friends,
good luck.
Fascism. What Tara talked about, fascism, but it's normalizing fascism. It is making it complacent so that when he runs for a third term, or he invokes habeas corpus, suspends habeas corpus,
which they've talked about multiple times.
Of these things that even 6 months ago would have been unfathomable. We will be so inured to him doing that because little things are being chipped away every day, whether it is pogroms, which is what this whole fucking thing reminded me of. Sorry, Dad. Of people on horseback galloping through or trotting through a park full of children on a summer morning on a Monday in Los Angeles, whether it is building concentration camps. They're not prisons, because prisons have to abide by the prohibition against cruel and punishment. They're concentration camps which if they flood from a hurricane, people will not be able to flee because there are alligators and moats effectively built around it.
Which Donald Trump, again, said he wanted during his first term, according to Miles Taylor. And they all looked at him and in the Oval Office and were like, yeah, no, are you serious? And because he was like, he actually said that he wanted alligators with moats along the border and also spikes so that people's heads could get impaled or whatever, their bodies would be impaled. They tried to scale the fence.
It is medieval. That's why in concentration camps you have barbed wire so that people when they climb over it impale themselves and die. Alligators, you guys, alligators.
And it's happening. The point I brought that up. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Julie. I just brought that up so that people understand, to Michelle's point that she makes all the time about do not suffer from a lack of imagination, that this fucking motherfucker said this in his first term and people put him back in office, and now he's executing all of his sick, depraved fever dreams of cruelty and suffering for this country. And violating our Constitution to do it. And he's surrounded by acolytes who are letting him do that. That's insane.
Go ahead. Sorry, Joe.
Well, I was just saying, since we're bumping up against one, which actually all of this threads together, like the threads together. My over it has to do with everything that you guys have said, and I'm just going to weave it in here because it fits perfectly, and it's so obvious that they are the party who calls themselves pro-life, and that's a lie. How many times do they have to tell us that that's a lie? Look, I'm going to make this very simple. If you're celebrating and bragging about and high-fiving and laughing in front of cages and bragging about people being eaten by alligators, you don't get to say you're pro-life. Like, if you're letting women bleed out and die while miscarrying because there's still a fetal heartbeat of a non-viable fetus in their bodies, you are not pro-life. If you're going to kick tens of millions of human beings off their health insurance, you're not pro-life. If you're going to pull a granny out of her, a retirement home bed, you're not pro-life. If you're going to let tens of millions of hungry kids starve, you're not pro-life. If you're going to stand on the Truman balcony and do the double-fisted jerk and twist while people are trying to find their little girls in the floodwaters of Texas, you are not pro-life. And that piece of shit sat there in that cabinet meeting yesterday and used that catastrophe to deflect from a valid question about the Epstein client list, which is suddenly poofed into thin air. He used that catastrophe in Texas, the worst imaginable for so many, to say, how dare you ask me this question when we have what happened in Texas? And all of that threads between everything that Julie and Tara have said. And for me, it's a really quick over it because they keep telling us every single day, time after time, minute after minute, that this is not a party that is pro-life. They are pro-forced birth and pro-control and pro-power. That's it. And I'm fucking sick of it. And everything that you guys we've all talked about, but you're over it. To me, it feeds into that single narrative. And that's the kind of shit that the Democrats need to be ringing the alarm on every minute of every day, because it reminds us both of their depravity and of the one party in this country that wants to do something about those things, that gives a shit if you live or die and doesn't say you'll get over it like Mitch McConnell is over it, because our over it is over Mitch fucking McConnell.
Yes. And I'm just going to say, so that Michelle can do her over it without interruption, I'm actually about to hop because I have to do MSNBC in a few minutes. And we're going to talk about the fact that Gavin Newsom and Ruben Gallego are taking trips to South Carolina and a couple places, possibly laying the foundation for running in 2028.
Good.
And I think it to Joe's point here that there is so much here for Democrats to run on, to wake the American people up, and for them to rally behind just the simple things of, we're not okay with this, and we're the ones who are going to fight for you. And authenticity matters, and relating and connecting to people matters, and how you talk to them matters. And Democrats better start doing it yesterday, or else we're going to lose this country. So on that note, Michelle, I'm handing it over to you.
Which is why Joanne Carducci needs to run against Tom.
Yes. Listen, we got people in the chat, Joe, trying to recruit you. We will be on your kitchen cabinet.
Tara. We love you.
Love you guys. See you later.
Bye, Tara.
Michelle's turn.
Yeah. It's funny. It's not funny because I don't find anything funny anymore. lately. It's, I don't know about you guys, but I'm like having a hard time laughing lately. I'm having a hard time walking down the street and watching people just be normal when nothing is normal. And I've been in the car since 6 a.m. That's why I have my headscarf on today, is because I had to drive back to New York with my husband this morning from way up north, in the land of MAGA. And we were listening to a podcast this morning about the rise of Fox News. I don't know, Julie, if you've listened to it. It's season
lived
10 of Slow Burn.
no.
Yeah, well, I'm only like on the second episode, but they were talking about America's Talking, which was the Roger Ailes network that he tried to launch before Fox News, and how, you know, everybody from over there went over to Fox except for the women, and the women were all disposable, which, surprise, surprise. So they were talking.
They weren't disposable, and I have to be very careful here because I have an NDA.
Yeah, I'm quoting what the woman that they interviewed said.
Well, I want to, but maybe the woman has, you know, an NDA too. They weren't disposable. Well, you know what? I don't think I have an NDA with Roger Ailes' family, so I can say this. There were serious allegations that he harassed all of those women, and they did not go with him for those reasons.
Oh yeah. Well, there's that. So anyway, so I was listening to the development of that morning show, right? It was originally called Fox Express, and Roger Ailes held a contest as to what they were going to call the show. And people wrote in or called in or whatever. And the winner was Fox and Friends. And Brian Kilmeade did sports, and Steve Doocy did weather, and Edie Hill was on the couch. And they eventually talked to the guy who came up with the name, the person who wrote it in and won the contest. And he said, well, you know, it has a double meaning. It's Fox because it's the network, but also because Edie Hill's sitting on that couch and she's really hot. Isn't she's a fox? So there was like, there's always this one woman surrounded by men. Now, I was sitting there listening to that. First of all, my jaw was on the floor because I had no idea that was the case. And also that Brian Kilmeade did sports. I mean, that was very funny to me.
I am so not surprised at all by that.
Oh my God, you need to talk to Gretchen Carlson. My God, she replaced Edie Hill. She sat between Brian and
I used to. Well, yeah, and it's funny because I was like Edie Hill. I was like, oh my God, I used to work with
Edie Hill.
I used to work with her husband. Her husband, Joe Hill, was the head of marketing at the hedge fund that I worked at for 2 years. And I remember him. I mean, everyone was like, "Oh, that's Edie Hill's husband," and I was like, I don't watch Fox. I don't know who that is. But then I eventually, obviously, knew who that was, and you know, Jeb Bush would come into the office. Anyways, so I'm listening to all of that, and I'm thinking about something, and it is that, you know, Seneca Project. I wish Tara was here to talk about this too, but we expanded the mission. We broadened it. Seneca Project, because we started the Seneca Project because we wanted to focus on women's issues. We wanted to focus on things that mattered to women and our rights being under attack in this country, in the hopefulness that we were going to elect the first woman president of the United States, who happened to be the first vice president of the United States. So we lost. She lost. 2 women lost to Donald Trump. And it's almost like the Donald Trump second victory was a green light for all the bad things, but especially about women. And I'm not just talking about our rights being chipped away, but that's all very, very obvious. I'm talking about the day-to-day. And I'm even talking about progressives and Democrats. A lot of men do not have to pretend anymore to give a shit about women, our voices, our businesses, or anything. I'm not saying it's all men, but it sure is a whole lot of them. And it's microaggressions, and it's dismissiveness. It's a lack of investment in women's organizations and women's businesses. And it is a dismissiveness of women's pain and abuse. And I mean, like the P. Diddy trial, like, I mean, what? Like, there was video of this man harming her, and he was not found guilty of these things. And the reason that they couldn't get more women on the jury is because when the women in the voir dire process was asked, have you or someone you care about been sexually assaulted? They couldn't find more women than 4.
Mm-hmm.
Say no.
What's that?
To say no.
Yeah.
To say no. Right. And you know, because there was 8 men and 4 women on that jury. And so it's just like, it's something that's I'm starting to feel it, and it's really snowballing, like in my own life as an individual and as a professional person and as someone who works in politics. It is something I am feeling more and more every day. It's like no one has to pretend anymore to give a shit about what happens to women.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, don't talk about the bad things that have happened to you because no one cares, because there's worse stuff that's happening. That's kind of like, and that's the way that a lot of people have gotten away with a lot of bad behavior, is because there's always something worse happening that, you know, demands our attention, and we cannot divide if, you know, we cannot conquer if we're divided. And I'm seeing a whole lot of it. I'm feeling a whole lot of it day to day, and it has just been bubbling up. And that is, I mean, I guess I can say that I'm over it. I'm over everyone acting like things that pertain to women and us being full human beings who are capable and smart and motivated and passionate and all these things, that we are not treated equally. And, you know, it comes from this like very patriarchal, you know, part of, and again, I say, in this political industrial complex that we all participate in and we all work in, it is bad. It's bad on our side too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sick of it. I'm sick
Can
of
you
it.
imagine?
And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Can you imagine if the Democrats kept a brain dead man alive because he still had viable sperm,
I know.
and they kept him alive on a machine so that they could harvest his sperm? Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, you can't imagine it because, first of all, it's insane and we would never. But this is what happened to a woman in Georgia. She was brain dead and kept alive via machines when her family was begging for her to be taken off of them because she had a fetus that had a heartbeat, even though that fetus was essentially non-viable and has been born with very little prospect of even living at all. It's blind. I think several other things are wrong with it. A lot of its organs have not formed properly, but it really does speak to, yeah, that's one side of it. And it is both sides. I think, Michelle, you're right. We see this all the time.
Of course, it's one side that's like 1 million bajillion times worse, but
yes,
it's this like feeling on our side, we're the good guys and we don't feel that, and it's all just like, it just feels pretend. It just feels so pretend, and it's like misogyny and sexism and mistreatment of women everywhere is bipartisan. It just is.
Well,
and it's the one thing that brings everyone together.
As I don't know if people in the chat know this, I know you guys do. So in my real life, when I'm not doing this and my job and a million other things, I'm the co-founder of an organization called Lift Our Voices, which is now, unfortunately, one of the last remaining Me Too organizations. It was founded by me and by Gretchen Carlson, who many of you know, speaking of Fox News and Fox and Friends, was the first woman to come forward against Roger Ailes. And she arguably kicked off this iteration of the Me Too movement that we're in now, or were in for the last 7 or 8 years before a lot of things happened. I have to remain optimistic because of the work that we do. And I am optimistic. It's not.
And same here. I mean, like with us.
When I'm not just patting my, I'm not trying to Pollyanna this to death. I am optimistic. And I will talk about the Diddy trial as one example. I said this to USA Today, which called us for comment about this, because obviously a lot of people felt the way you do, Michelle. And a lot of people in the chat agree that the jury got it wrong. I don't know whether the jury got it wrong from a purely legal standpoint. I'm not a lawyer. I'm married to one, and he seemed to think there were problematic issues with what he was charged with versus what was shown. For example, that video was apparently shown. He couldn't be prosecuted for domestic violence. They had to charge him with racketeering, which was a very weak charge to charge him with, apparently, on the law. because they had to get that video in, and that's the way to have gotten it in.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know whether that's true. As I said, that's what my husband, who's a criminal defense lawyer, so he comes from his own perspective, seemed to say, or did say. But if we look at this from a cultural perspective, and we always say, I have changed 2 federal laws. The hyper-partisan era is insane, but we got 2 federal laws passed. With the support, by the way, and the sponsorship of Lindsey Graham and Kirsten Gillibrand. Think about that. We brought those people together. But changing laws, even though it is impossible to do in this hyper-partisan environment, is still easier than changing culture.
Yeah.
And what Cassie Ventura did, and I want people to really listen to me on this because it's very, very, very important to remember this. What Cassie Ventura did is much bigger than just whether her perpetrator will spend the rest of his life in prison or not.
Mm-hmm.
She had the courage to come forward despite amazing fear, not just of being attacked by trolls on the internet that she didn't know, or people on the street she didn't know, but she did not want her own mother to know the humiliation and the sexual escapades that effectively she was into for so many years while she was dating Diddy. And she, despite that, put her fear aside, put aside the shame of abuse, put aside the shame of the most intimate sexual things that her children will now read about, and her husband will now know about, and her mother, who she continuously said she did not want to know about it. And she spoke the truth on the stand for many days. That is going to allow so many other women to do the same.
I hope so.
In order to create a culture where this is not acceptable. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to Diddy. He's going to be sentenced, I assume, to some time in prison. He'll be out eventually, and he'll probably have a second act. Like a lot of these men have second acts.
They all do.
But he will never be
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. But he will never be the guy he once was. Because
That's true.
Because Cassie Ventura came forward, and more relevantly, he got off because he's a famous celebrity.
Yeah.
If he was just a regular African-American guy, he'd be spending the rest of his life in prison because that's what we do to our men.
Right. I mean, it's
right. And
it's
so,
all these famous comedians. It's the actors. Yeah.
Yeah. But not everybody who is abused by a famous celebrity, and not everybody who's abused is a famous person like Cassie Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
And those women will be able to come forward, I think, with a little bit more freedom now to hold their perpetrator accountable, if not legally, then culturally. And that shame and that stigma of being abused is being chipped away at every single day because of people like Cassie Ventura. And I just want people to know that there is something that came out of this that is much more positive than just the verdict, which I know so many people are disappointed with.
Well, yeah, and I see this stuff, and I'm like, well, this is why women don't come forward, is because they go through all of this, the pain, the humiliation, the retaliation, then the retaliation from all the fans and the minions, and then there comes the legal costs and the threat of being bankrupt, and this is why women don't come forward. And I mean, you know this, Julie, too. I mean, this is why women don't come forward often with workplace abuse or workplace discrimination.
People don't come forward. And I just remember this very well. The day after I filed my Fox lawsuit, I was still under contract. I had to go into work, which was a whole separate nightmare. But I remember going into work, and I remember seeing a woman who went up to me almost in tears because there were cameras everywhere. Everybody's very careful about me. It was very, very much like a Mean Girls, like can't be seen with, her.
Yeah.
She was like Blubber from Judy Blume. But if anybody ever read that book, but this one woman came up to me and said, I wish I could do what you did, but I am the sole supporter of my family. And I just want to take this pay cut.
I mean,
by the way, I was too. So,
right.
But I understand everybody's different priorities and different reasons as to why they don't come forward. The same woman that when Roger Ailes died, sobbed on on air about what a wonderful role model he was, and I was kind of slack-jawed.
See,
because,
this is the kind of shit that makes me crazy.
yeah,
Like, listen, maybe this is why people, I burn bridges at places like I probably shouldn't, and like whatever, because I just tell people that I'm like, you are messed up. I can't believe that you would do that. And I have no problem saying these things out loud. I never have. And I'm like, if you don't want to like me anymore, I don't really care. And and I see people like that or hear about it, and the hypocrisy is outrageous. And
Yeah.
speaking of hypocrisy, then I mean, this is another thing that bubbling up, aside from the Edie Hill thing and this and that, is like the Epstein file thing. It's like, okay, Epstein file, as the Epstein client list, we're going to get it. And then it's like, by the way, there isn't one, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. And I'm thinking about Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah. Is that how you pronounced her last name? I never knew.
Yes, I looked it up.
Joffrey? Giuffre?
I don't know.
It said J-U, and then I looked at the phonetic. Maybe it's wrong, but anyways, I'm going to pretend that it's Giuffre. And, this poor woman who went through all the pain of speaking up, who went through the pain of coming forward against a bajillionaire and some of the most powerful people in the world, including a Prince of England.
Mm-hmm.
And she took her own life. And for her and for all the other young women who survived or didn't, I think about this and I'm like, I don't care about the conspiracy theories. Who gives a shit? I mean, I care about the young women who are never going to see the day. Never. And just for hundreds and thousands of years, I just feel sometimes that women we keep waiting. We just keep waiting. Waiting for someone to represent us, waiting for someone to speak up for us, waiting for our moment in court, waiting for our justice. And
you guys, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I am telling you right now, we are further ahead than we were 10 years ago. We will be further ahead where we are today. And
that's why they're so angry.
And again,
yes,
Gretchen Carlson came forward 6 months or so less before Donald Trump's first election. I came forward 6 months or even less, 4 months after his first election. And despite that, we passed 2 federal laws. There are laws that were passed with our help and the leadership of so many women across this country, and continue to be, even now, even in this environment. They don't get the attention they deserve because the media does not give a rat's ass. And the media has declared the Me Too movement is over, even though it is not. And it is not because we continue to pass laws. We continue to change culture. We continue to create different mechanisms for reporting bad behavior. We continue to destigmatize sexual harassment and sexual assault and domestic violence and awful things that, I experienced the tip of the iceberg, but other people experienced much more. And some of them want to talk about it, and some of them don't want to talk about it. But the reality is we are talking about it as a culture more and more and more every day. And things that were shameful even 10 years ago are not shameful anymore. And things that were dismissed and not believed 10 years ago are believed now.
Yeah. And I will say also to both those points, that even one voice, like one woman's story, one woman standing up and saying, whether it's Me Too or whether it's no more, or whether it's what I'm seeing right now, I see it on my side. I see it in the industry that I work in. I see it among the consultancy class of social media who lift themselves up and put themselves out there as some sort of heroes and saviors while mistreating, in particular, women who do what I do. And I will say, Michelle, it can feel so often like you're swimming up against a tsunami, right? It can feel like that tsunami is washing us away more and more and more, especially when you see an adjudicated rapist who bragged about grabbing women by the pussy at the top.
Right.
It really can feel like that. And when you see it on our side too. But that's when voices like yours, voices like Julie's, voices like Tara's, voices like mine, voices like Gretchen's, voices that are out there saying no more, me too. That's when like they matter the most, and they can actually, I think, potentially ignite the biggest fires, right? Like, I think because you're not alone and you've identified something you feel that so many people out there feel too, and might not have a place for that voice to be heard, but they just carry that weight alone. But just hearing one person say, I see that, I'm experiencing that, I feel that, it can light that fire in others. And if you change or like inspire one woman out there to share her story and to stand up and speak out, then you've done a miracle. And like, that's why what Julie's work is so incredibly important, because it not only gives voice to these women, but it protects them as well. And we need to do that for each other more and more. Like, that's why so often people say, like, I love watching women uplift other women, which is what we all do, because it's become an anomaly, which is unfortunate. I know women are so competitive, whether that's in our nature or not. But I am inspired every single day to both share my own stories, and I have a lot to say on that front. Believe me, stay tuned for a lot of that. But also, like, to want to protect and uplift other women, to share whatever stories they are, because we all have a myriad of stories to share. And right now, we really, really need to have each other's backs.
Well, and I think part of the reason for that, Joe, historically has been that there has always been a tokenism of women in any space. And that means that I'm going to have one woman sit in this room where, you know, the room where it happens. And therefore the women all have to compete to see which one of those women is going to be in that room, which means that we all have to hate each other. As
divide and conquer. That's like, it's always what they do.
Yep. And I think what we're all trying to build here in our own respective ways, and that's part of the reason why we have this show, part of the reason why I think both, you know, all three of us plus Tara are building up media ecosystems that expand this for other women as well in our respective ways. That is because we don't want there to be one woman in a sea full of men. We want to break down the door so that many women who are qualified can be in that room.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Doesn't this tokenism of women or African Americans, or pick your you know, demographic that hasn't had the privilege of white men, enough already? Because the reality is, and I, you know, we have this fear of, oh, well, men in the manosphere are going to be upset about this, and this is exactly why Trump won. It's not about hating men. In my Lift Our Voices work, in our, you know, we did a little talk, Gretchen Carlson and I, yesterday on Substack, and a man said, "Is there any room in your movement for men?" And we said, "My God,
of course,
we can't do it without you. We need you. We want you involved on an equal basis. This is not about shoving anybody out. It is just about welcoming other people in." And I think that that's this whole notion that the manosphere has been fed on both sides of the aisle, I might add.
Yes.
About the fact that, oh, wait a second, you know, they're coming for us. They're coming for us. Nobody's coming for you. We just want to be alongside you, and we want you alongside us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we all want to be doing the work, and we want our voices to be as equal as theirs, and because we have a lot to lose. And yes, I mean, white women, you know, are one thing, but let me say, like, if you are an immigrant woman or a woman of color or a Black woman, like, please, I beg people, look around you. If you're someone who listens to political podcasts, if you subscribe to political, you know, conglomerates or anything like that, please look to the ones that are run by women, specifically women of color. If, you know, seek them out, seek out those voices. you know, there's not a lot of them because there's not as much investment in and there's not as much just implicit trust put into those voices. And we have to lift them up. And because I look around in the pro-democracy space and I see a whole lot of companies that are run, founded, managed by white guys.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that they're not smart or in their own right or whatever. I don't really care, quite frankly. But there sure as hell are a lot of amazing, brilliant, smart, you know, compassionate women that deserve their place in all of this too. So, you know.
And Michelle, you're absolutely right. And if we really want to fight for this democracy, if we really, really want to make a difference and make an impact, we have to reach people we're not reaching right now. We have to reach people who either didn't show up to vote because they didn't feel seen, or they voted for Trump because they didn't feel seen, or whatever it is. There's so many people who felt like they were on the outside of a whole bunch of people who look the same, talking to each other about the same things. And if we want to engage those potential voters and inspire them to participate in this little experiment of ours, they have to feel seen. And they're not necessarily going to feel seen by, and I love you guys, by a conversation between three white women. I'm not saying that like we shouldn't do it. My God, it's important every day. This is our voice. This is who we are. This is what we need to do. But we have to expand that universe. We have to make that tent actually bigger, and also make the door for people to get in bigger, instead of saying we have this big tent, making the door teeny tiny.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy.
Talking to each other, and like, and the only way to do that is to embrace and encourage and support and fund you, like you said, organizations led by people of color, led by women. But like, there are so many creators out there who I love and watch, and they're amazing, and they are reaching new people, but there's too few of them, and we need to lean into that. And like, that requires,
and they don't have the money.
Well, right. So there's the money, right? So, but we also need those companies that are led by men to help in this regard. Like, I know that that's asking a lot because this is capitalism and nobody wants to give up their spot. But the thing is, like, it's a lift all boats moment, and particularly as it pertains to social media, because we are so far behind. And those companies, if you ask me, they need to start making the investments. We're making them in ourselves, but we are behind the 8 ball because we are women led and because we are up against the tsunami. But those dudes have a responsibility too. And I think that they should be tasked with that right now to meet this moment. I'm just going to put that out there, because it is just too many of the same voices reaching the same people, and you're never going to make a change that way.
Well, look at what Mondani, listen, say what you will, look what Trump did last year and look what Mondani did this year. The reason nobody saw their election turn out as well as they did for both of them is because the consultant class, of which I was one for many, many decades, always predicates their analysis on previous turnout models.
Right.
And all of a sudden, especially with Zohran Mamdani, he turned out people who never voted before. Young men.
Because I feel like, did he, or he must have hired a lot of organizers and things like that.
He also got a lot of Trump voters to vote for him.
Yeah. As did AOC.
Yeah.
And why did AOC do that? They spoke and they continue to speak Trump in his bullshit way, AOC in her way, Mamdani in his way. None of them is my cup of tea from a policy standpoint, but I see what the messaging is like.
Oh, for sure.
And it's very effective. They speak to people's concerns and they don't condescend to them.
Yep. Yeah. And they meet people where they are, which is also very important.
They don't lecture to them.
No.
They don't tell them to just wait because they know better. Just trust me, I know better, because I'm Andrew Cuomo and I've been around. Or for that matter,
I'm James Carville and I won an election 30 years ago. So just sit there and play dead until the next election.
Yeah, and play possum. Yep.
And they won because they said, I see what you feel. What you feel is real. And I see that.
I feel your pain.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's what Trump did. I feel your grievance. It was all grievance. Right. I mean, I feel that someone else is to blame for everything, and you know what I mean. And this is the key. AOC and Mandami, they make their realities legitimized, and like whether that's good, bad, or otherwise, that's when you can get people to trust you. First and foremost, engage with you and believe in you enough to get out there and support you and vote for you and put you in positions of power.
Oh, I just saw this and I love that. I think it's really clever.
Good. I love it.
That's clever. Really I like that.
You have to have an ad look at that. I love it. All right, ladies, it is 1:29. I think at least 2 to 3 of us have a hard stop at 1:30. So we are.
I gotta go unpack my suitcase and maybe eat some food.
Worst. Unpacking is the worst.
It's the worst. I did nothing about it. I enjoy.
Don't even do it. Just keep it in there until you have to go somewhere again. That's what
I do sometimes. Yeah.
My son has been carrying the same suitcase, the same dirty clothes for the last 5 trips.
This is how I feel about unloading the dishwasher. It's like, I don't want to. So maybe I'll just keep using them out of the dishwasher until they're all gone. And then I'll put the
There you go.
I'm just, then that's where my husband goes, what did you do?
Okay. So you guys join us on Saturday for another episode of Coffee and Conversation at 10 a.m. Eastern. And what else is happening? Are you doing your steaks?
Yeah, we'll be doing the steaks tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Tara and myself on the Seneca platforms, specifically on YouTube. We're just going to be talking about what's going on, and because we were not there last week, so I hope you'll join us.
Do you have a Sanish episode coming out?
Sanish is dropping. I have the David Pakman episode, which dropped yesterday.
And nice! I love him.
Yeah, and we were in the Roosevelt room together, so we have that kindred spirit moment. But also Brian Karam, who is my Lebanese cousin, he is on tomorrow's episode of Sanish, and we're gonna be doing I'm gonna start launching daily lives a la Michael Cohen on Substack. So Brian and I are going to have one every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you guys don't follow Brian, he's on Substack. He is amazing. He keeps it so real, and he's also fucking hilarious. He called something the circle jerk. I forget what it was, but he was referring to Mike Johnson and Donald Trump, and it was literally hilarious. But yeah, so that's what's going on. I've got a new essay on Are You Effing Kidding Me coming up today about the Epstein files and about how Donald Trump thinks he's gonna get us to not talk about this anymore, which is the shiny object. We have to talk about all of it, like we just do.
Fabulous. And I have my weekly show with Olga Latman tomorrow, Pax Americana, talking about newest developments in Trump's man obsession with Putin, which is going through its ups and downs, and how American media is so stupid because they believe Trump when he says that he's upset with Putin. I was on CNN last night at Abby Phillips' show, and people were like, oh, wow, he's really finally turned on Putin. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe it. Anyway, so we all have a lot of stuff going on. You guys, we are so grateful to you for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then the 3 of us plus Tara will see you on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern on Coffee and Conversation. Have a great rest of the week, everybody, and we'll see you Saturday. Bye.
Bye.